Good morning, good evening, everybody. I really do appreciate you jumping on. As Richard said, what we're going to talk about here is not really about how security APIs suck. They do in many instances. They've really been afterthoughts. But fundamentally, what we're going to talk about a little bit today is, well, why does that matter? We'll talk about, well, what are the options for then solving for this? How do we go build a robust ecosystem, a robust integration program? What are the options to build versus buy? If you're going to buy, why and how should I do it? What should I think about? And then we'll show you from there a little bit on Synqly, where Synqly is an integration platform. So we think we're a really good option to actually solve the challenge of building, expanding integrations in your security ecosystem at scale. So with that, before we get started, just a little bit on me. So I'm Joel Bauman. I'm co-founder and CEO of Synqly. But my background is 20 plus years running biz dev, corp dev for security companies and a little bit in the IT ops space as well. And in that 22 years, what I've seen is a position where we've gone from a limited number of integrations, which have been really helpful, to a situation where we've got to integrate everything. And I've hit firsthand the challenge of having to then go talk to the engineering teams, the customer support teams, and say, hey, we need to integrate this. And fundamentally being left out of the room because you can't possibly scale that to the needs of enterprise customers. So let's review a little bit about what the challenge actually is, and then we'll go into some of the solutions. So here's where I see the challenge. If you look at security, IT, ops, and infrastructure more generally, there are now over 20,000 security and IT ops products out there alone, built by about 9,500 different ISVs. That's a ginormous number of products. And fundamentally, what that's meant is enterprise security teams have increased their buy of security products 760%. Back in 2014, kind of the good old days, companies would buy 5, 10, 15 different products. Today, they're buying 75, 80, 100, 120 different security products alone. That doesn't include all of the IT ops products. It doesn't include all of the infrastructure products that they fundamentally need to work together. Now, in a survey from Gartner that was done about a year ago, they surveyed security professionals. They said, well, do you need products to be integrated? And not surprisingly, 81% said, yes, we do. They need it to be integrated because it makes life simpler. I can't hire enough people to go siloed one by one and use all those different tools. Plus, it provides much better security. Because now I can actually share data across systems. I can enrich data with different alerts. I can go track and triage alerts, and I've got better compliance. The challenge is vendors can't keep up with 25,000 products. How do I actually build an integration platform that will get me to even that 10, 20, 40, 100, 250 different products that my enterprise customers are actually asking me to integrate? Well, that's where that build by partner analysis really comes in. And so if you're thinking about, well, if I want to go build, what should I be thinking about? What's the value of building versus buy? And by here, what we're really talking about are integration platforms. And we'll talk about what those are and how those work. But think about the notion of being able to integrate through a unified API into a broad set of products with maintenance and support. And again, we'll talk a little bit more about this as we go, but a few key things to think about. And the first of those is the integration strategic. Now, as I've gone and I've talked to security vendors, I've talked to IT ops vendors, invariably what you get is, oh yeah, they're all strategic. Well, that's not necessarily true. Strategic here, what I mean is this a deep integration that I want to fundamentally build and maintain with a strong partner on the other side so that I can really embellish my go-to-market strategy, or it's fundamental to my business, but it's not one that I have to go repeat and build over and over and over for all the different vendors that solve for a similar use case. Now, it's been my experience that strategic integrations, while very, very useful, are rare. And so fewer than 5% of integrations are actually strategic. Most of the rest are commodity. They're important to the business, but they really actually get to that strategic place where I'm building something unique? Or is this a situation where rather than having to go build to one by one of all the SIM vendors, all the vulnerability management vendors, I really only want to have to build that once. The second core question is, is there higher value work my engineers should be doing instead? I've yet to find a security or IT ops company that actually has enough engineering to do everything that needs to get built. And the question is, can I pull engineers off of that core work in order to go build this integration? Then comes back to the strategic question. Is it strategic enough for me to go do that? If the answer is yes, I've got the high value workers, then, well, maybe I go build. But if I don't have the high value workers, I really need to go find something that's going to help me scale. The third is how expensive is maintenance? What's it going to take to actually maintain all of the integrations that I need to maintain? Do I need to pull engineers off to do it? Am I willing to flip an integration and just have it work until it breaks at a customer site? And I've seen that over and over and over again. It creates really bad customer experience. Enterprise and survey after survey say they don't like it, but I have seen some companies do it. Definitely not best practice. Do I have in-house expertise available? Again, that comes back to, do I have engineers and do they have the right capability to be able to go in, understand APIs, and then come up with a reasonable path to go build an integration across these systems? Can I build the partnership? This is becoming harder and harder. If you go look at most of the big security companies, they're starting to put up more and more gates to actually being able to partner with them. Do I have 5 or 6 customers asking for it? Can I go actually get the time and attention of one of those biz dev teams? In a lot of cases you can, and they've got decent, robust, biz dev programs, but in a lot of cases you can't. And if you can't, using an integration platform is a good way to go to be able to integrate. And then you can go on the back end and say, well, I've got all of these customers, this is a robust integration. Now I've got evidence to go actually make the case to some of those larger vendors. And finally, as I said at the beginning, do I need the same integration over and over and over again? Nobody wants to have to go build 150 different SIM integrations for all of the SIM vendors out there. It just doesn't scale. And so if I do have to go build this because each of my customers uses something different, integration platforms are a great way to get there without fundamentally having to go build one by one, learning every API on the planet, learning every data schema, learning every query language. So if I'm gonna then go buy rather than go build, there are some core things that I also want to think about. The first of those is security use cases. Again, integration platforms have been out there for a very, very, very long time. The challenge is most of those have been B2B focused. I want to be able to integrate my CRM system to my HRM system to my ERP system. Those vendors may dabble a little bit in security. The challenge is they don't really understand security use cases and they don't go broad. Synqly's actually got one of the biggest security ecosystems of any iPads on the planet, and we're comparatively new. And it's simply because there's a lack of focus there and a real lack of understanding. So as you do look at integration platform vendors, do they have the vendors I need today integrated? Do they have the products I need integrated? And will they have the products that I'm fundamentally going to have to integrate tomorrow? So it's one thing to have a SIM or an endpoint. It's another thing to have all of the endpoint vendors integrated or all of the cloud security vendors integrated, for example. Second is platform security, right? Has the platform been built with a security mindset from day one? Does it have things like FIPS encryption? How does it handle role-based access? Breadth and depth is also very, very critical. And this is breadth and depth of capability. How robust are the connectors that I can go build? How robust are the integrations? Right? Does it have bidirectional capability so that I can query information out of a SIM, out of an endpoint vendor, out of a vulnerability management vendor, leveraging that query language? Can I also push data into those systems to the extent that they allow it? And then can I do things like take finite actions? I need to be able to do all of these things from an integration perspective. My platform needs to enable me to go do that. Fourth is, can I work with both cloud applications and on-prem applications? In security, unlike B2B apps, there's still a lot of applications running behind a customer's firewall. Can I pierce that firewall in order to be able to query for things? If I look at historically Splunk or QRadar, many of those systems are running in a private cloud or a data center. I need to be able to get to those. In addition to being able to integrate to purely those cloud applications, which is easier. The fifth is self-hosting. If you're in security, you're in IT apps, you're probably selling into regulated industry. You may be selling into things like federal organizations or international government agencies. They all have requirements around where you can actually run your software. Given that, Do I have a solution that I can run in my own environment rather than using their cloud? Do I have a solution that will actually run in my customer's environment as part of an embedded solution I'm providing? And finally, user analytics. As I said before, actually getting partnerships with some of these companies can be really, really challenging. I need data on who's using my integrations, how much they're getting used, in order to be able to go make the case to really start to invest funds in building out that partnership, expanding out the partnership. At the same time, customer support can't be an afterthought. If I know who's using integrations, how much they're used, if they break, when they break, why they break, I can now leverage a customer support person to actually go in and triage and help my customers rather than having to go scramble for an engineer. So that user analytics data becomes very, very rich. The alerts become very, very helpful. So these are things fundamentally that I'd look at as I evaluate any integration platform. Now let me jump over a little bit to Synqly. So how does Synqly map to that? And not surprisingly, we map pretty well, but I think that was a pretty comprehensive set of requirements around what I'd want if I'm running biz dev and I need an integration platform, or I'm running engineering and I want to make sure I've got a robust integration platform. So as I said, Synqly has built the first purpose-built integration platform for security, IT ops, and managed service vendors. In doing that, we're really targeting 5 core value props. And with these value props, we think we'll have dropped about 90% of the cost and time out of building, maintaining, and supporting integrations for our customers. So of those value props, the first is one-to-many. So what we have is a unified API with a common data model, which is standards-based, that runs across the entire infrastructure. So we leverage OCSF as the base of that data model. And then we leverage things like Stix Taxi for our IOCs and threat indicators. We expand out from there where those standards don't cover. And we do try to give back because we're a big believer in the notion that standards really helps to drive simpler integrations. And we think the industry as a whole needs that. It also has a common query language, so you no longer have to go learn all of the different query languages from all of the vendors you want to integrate with. Learn one. And so what that means is if I want to go integrate into a SIM vendor, for example, and I want to be able to push all of my event data into that SIM, I can do that leveraging that single data model. Synqly will do all of the work of translating all of that data into the data model of the underlying SIM providers. And each SIM then just becomes a new configuration, and we'll show you what that looks like. I can also then query data back out. And so if I want to do things like threat enrichment, or I want to pull posture data for compliance purposes, I can go do that. The second piece that we really need to focus on is maintenance. From a maintenance perspective, rather than having our customers go in and have to maintain their integrations over and over and over again and monitor for all of the changes in security APIs, and this is where security APIs really do suck. Companies do a poor job of actually documenting all of the changes that take place, and sometimes they're never actually documented. They don't provide very much advance notice, and so suddenly you're scrambling. Well, at Synqly, this is our core business. And so we monitor for those changes, and we make sure that our platform is always up to date with the latest and greatest APIs from all of the vendors that we support. What this means is most of the time our customers don't actually have to do anything. They're just automatically maintained. Where that changes is if a vendor starts to open up new functionality. And if I'm opening up new functionality, fundamentally, I may want to be able to take advantage of that. You update your integration to Synqly, it all then continues to work and it continues to be maintained. The third is metrics, and we've already talked about the need for insight. I want to know who's using something, who's using my integrations, how much they're used. I want to see what my most popular integrations are. I want to know if an integration breaks, when it breaks, and why it breaks. We provide all of that visibility in an admin dashboard for you. You can also integrate that, actually leveraging our own technology, into your ticketing systems, your notification systems, so that you automatically get notified wherever you do most of your work. The fourth is one that's actually unique to Synqly, and I'm really excited about this one. So nobody's got a lab environment today with all of the different products running that you're integrating to in order to be able to run end-to-end functional testing and demos. Synqly is now building Synqly Labs in order to enable just that. So start with our mock providers, which mirror the functionality of the underlying products. That enables that functional end-to-end testing. Later this summer, we'll start to add the actual products behind that. That'll enable both the functional end-to-end testing as well as demo. Again, nobody's got a lab environment with all of the software running. This simplifies the process, enables you to get connected to more software more quickly. And finally, if you look at survey after survey after survey on integrations, you talk to enterprise customers, what they say is integrations are needed. But in order for us to use them, they've got to be drop dead simple. There was an ESG survey done on integrations back in 2023 that said exactly that. In order to make it simple, Synqly believes that integrations should be an embedded part of your product. It shouldn't be an afterthought or something that an SE goes and tries to kind of cobble together on the sideline. In order to simplify that, Synqly's built what we call the Connect UI. And we'll show you what that looks like here shortly as well. With 40 lines of code, you can drop this UI into your product. It enables your customer then to choose which of the integrations they want to enable. It walks them through full configuration with all of the documentation so that they know the connection is made. And then once that connection is made, it's tested to make sure that everything's working properly. It's optional. We've also got an open API that enables the full thing, but this is the drop dead simple button. With 40 lines of code, again, what you end up with is a robust embedded system. Again, we think by solving for these 5 areas, one-to-many with a unified API, automated maintenance, ongoing metrics, a lab for QA and demos, and then simplified UI to enable customers to configure things, we'll have dropped about 90% of the cost and time out of building, maintaining, and supporting integrations. And that excites me because this actually solves a problem that I've seen that's only grown. In order to provide this, we've got, again, one of the largest, if not the largest, security ecosystem of any iPaaS on the planet. Today, we've got over 50 products supported. A year from now, we'll have 150. So we're automating much of the process of adding them. Each of these connectors is a deep bi-directional integration. Some of them also allow actions. For example, with identity management, I can force a password reset. If I find an identity that may be compromised, I can force a session timeout. Similarly, with endpoint, I could quarantine a workload, and I can do that by programming this once. I don't have to go program for Okta and Entra and Ping and Google Workspace or CrowdStrike and SentinelOne and Microsoft Defender. I only have to do that once. And this ecosystem is continuing to grow based on feedback we get from our customers. Now, let me explain a little bit about what this looks like in real life, and then I'll actually show it to you. So one of our customers is RedScale, and they've been a fantastic customer. For those that aren't familiar with RedScale is a GRC product, governance, risk, and compliance. What they've built is a compliance as code solution based off the OSCAL standard. So again, we're a big believer in standards. The challenge that they had is as that GRC solution, they've got to pull data from hundreds to thousands of different systems across an enterprise or across a federal organization. And in order to be able to pull all of that data, they literally need hundreds of integrations. Well, before Synqly, they started to build this out, but it was taking forever because they had to map every data schema for every underlying product back into OSCAL. They had to learn every API. They had to go build the partnerships. They couldn't possibly scale it. They used us instead. So now rather than having to go map every data schema, they map one. It's that OCSF-based schema into OSCAL. They learn one query language. And fundamentally what that's meant is they've now integrated 4 of our connectors. The last one, asset management, took less than 5 hours. They've now got 20 plus products integrated. And as we add more products into each one of those connectors, they automatically get added without actually ever having to write another line of code. This means they can actually scale as we scale. They're going to continue to add more connectors. Cloud security will probably be next. And they'll grow as we grow. According to the CEO, we used to think they'd need 10 different integrations for ticketing alone. With Synqly, it's one integration and done. That's really powerful. What it means is I can now scale my integrations, and I don't have to make those trade-offs between, well, do I build an integration or do I build something that's really more core to my business? They can go build what's core to their business. So now we're going to get into a little bit of show and tell. How does it actually work? And this gets really exciting because you can actually see it in action. So the left-hand side of the screen, you see Synqly's console. We'll show you that in detail and how it actually works. On the left is another one of our customers, Senson. That's their console. And what you see there is not Synqly. What you see are really embedded integrations. So I can click on one, I get them configured, and off I go. That's an embedded part of their product. So let's actually see it in action here. So what I'm going to build now, oops, if I can, there we go, is an integration for vulnerability management. My customer is Our McKenzie, and fundamentally what I want to be able to do is create an integration that pulls some basic data. What you see here are 20 lines of code. It's all written in Go, but we've got SDKs in Python and TypeScript as well. And this leverages that OCSF framework. And so if I want to filter for a specific time, I only have to use one version of time. And I want to filter for critical applications, I can call it critical, even though the vendors call it something different. I've done that. I've done the scan, and now what I see are results for Tenable. I can go in and see detailed results based off of that very basic program. You see the time, and then I can also filter for JSON, or I can pull all of this data back and fundamentally leverage that vulnerability data as an overlay for things like attack surface management. But some customers don't have Tenable, they've got others. So now what I want to be able to do is actually create an integration with all of Synqly's providers. And so through the UI, without ever having to write another line of code, I'm connecting up Synqly now for all of my providers. You see here, it's connected to all the providers. Few clicks. And now if I go in, I've got the full set of vulnerability management vendors we're supporting. And now I want to be able to pull quals. I select it, I configure it, I got to type in a secret, a username, a URL. I check to make sure that it's working. Connection was successful. And now I can scan for vulnerabilities based on Qualys rather than Tenable. I get the data, I've got all the detail, I've got the JSON, and off we go. If I wanted to use CrowdStrike instead, I could go choose from that list that I just had before and configure the same thing. This is our admin UI. Now I can see what's actually happening. So I've got a set of data points, and you see vulnerability scanning here. And I've actually got 7 vulnerability connectors integrated, or integrations done. I can see the customers who are actually using them. And I'm going to go back up to Our McKenzie, our use case, and see just how much they were using it. Looks like I've got some failed log requests, so I can drill in and actually see what was happening for each of those failed requests and go in and try to fix it. If it persists, I get an alert. I can also see what other integrations they're using. From a sales perspective, this can be very, very helpful because fundamentally now I know just how sticky I am. Do they have me integrated across their environment? Are there things I should be talking to my customer about in order to fundamentally get to and become a more integrated part of my enterprise architecture? Get all of that from the dashboard. You can also pull this data, because it's all API driven, into whatever system you're using for monitoring. So with that, we talked a little bit about, well, why is there a problem with the ecosystem today? What's the challenge if I've got 20,000 different security and IT ops products out there? How do I scale if I'm a vendor so that I can actually build that security ecosystem and the integration program I need? We talked about, well, how do I measure buy versus build? And if I'm going to go buy, what are some of the core things that I should be looking for in my iPaaS vendor? I showed you Synqly, and what you fundamentally see with Synqly is an cybersecurity and the IT ops focused integration platform that scales with you with very deep bi-directional capabilities. You've got a unified API, so rather than having to go build integrations to every single one of those 20,000 vendors, I build once, and I can get connected to all of those vendors. It's all for a specific use case. You didn't see it here, but we'll do a future webinar on our MCP interface. So we do leverage AI, and MCP enables a natural language solution to actually go in and build integrations at scale. So rather than leveraging API, I can use MCP. And then Synqly has the largest security ecosystem of any integration platform on the planet today. We're continuing to add to that. And fundamentally, what all of this means is I can save 90+% of the engineering time, the support time, and the cost of having to go build and maintain a full integration program. I look forward to meeting many of you as we continue Please feel free to ask questions on chat. I look forward to speaking with you and talking with you more deeply about integrations, the integration platform, and Synqly. Thank you very much.